I guess I was probably high school, college age, and everybody was on the streets. Just walking up and down the streets and talking to each other and shaking hands and doing deals. I mean, it was really kind of fun to watch. That's fun. Yeah, I didn't even think about walking down memory lane like that. Yeah, it's kind of weird to even think that I've been here for as long as I have been. So my kind of first real experience was high school. And I remember coming down with my dad, and the old First National Bank, which is currently Bank of America, had a coffee time. And I bet there were 200 people in there. It was a huge area. And so I'd sit with Dad, and they'd just sit around and talk about deals and selling stuff and buying stuff. And so all these activities and transactions were happening at this coffee shop. So I always kind of felt like that was kind of an interesting way to do business. And then after doing a little history, it used to be like that at the old Scarborough Hotel. People would come, that was probably a generation before.
The Scarborough Hotel sat where what was formerly the Doubletree and the Hilton Hotel was, yes. And so it sat on Wall Street. It was the huge piece of Wall Street. And at the time, it was the premier hotel in this whole area. And so everything important in Midland could take place there, but also many of the ranchers in the early days. And then as the oil came in, huge deals. Life magazine had a picture of that lobby, and this is where the deals were made between the oil and men and all that. In the days before you could do all the technology, people came together and talked. My name is Jim Collette. I'm the president of the Midland Historical Society. Our mission is to really tell the story of what J. Evans Haley called the Midland Country, which is the city of Midland and the county, but also surrounding that, because some of the ranchers in the early days looked to, and still do look to, Midland as their area. So the Midland Country kind of runs all the way, say, up to Jowl, back over towards Snyder, kind of skips Odessa. They have their own Odessa country, I guess. So it's that bigger idea of what Midland is centered on. That's what we try to tell and share that story. Wall Street goes all the way back to the beginning. It was originally called Iowa Street. The east-west streets are named for states. The north-south streets are named for stops on the railroad. So Main Street was actually Abilene Street. But at some point, because of the way the town grew, it became Main. And I think that idea of Wall Street became the idea, oh, that's going to be where the commerce is going to be, everything. If you go all the way back to the beginning, a lot of the photos we have actually are Main Street, they're that intersection of Main and Wall. And so that has always been kind of the hub of Midland forever and forever until the city kind of grows to the point where it grows out toward the hospital area and eventually further and further out. And then also it was the first thoroughfare, so when the Highway 80, or the original highway, the Broadway of America, was built, it ran right through there. So that was the highway until they moved it over because of the traffic flow and all that. So yes, it's always been, and still is, a vibrant piece of Midland's history. There were two courthouses that I know of. The third one, I'm not sure, it was a wood frame building. But the second courthouse that was there was made out of the red sandstone that came from the quarry at Quito near Pecos, Texas. Beautiful building. And then when that was taken down, there was the 1930s courthouse that was built. And then in the 1970s, the courthouse that had the jail added on top and the columns built, they didn't actually enclose that one. And so all those courthouses were on that spot, basically where the little hill is now. We don't know a whole lot about the Opera House, but yes, they did have entertainment way back, even before movies and all. And so Opera House was probably more like a vaudeville type thing, I think, if I had to guess. There's very little about it, but we do have I think a flyer or two from it or one of the other early ones. Well, what happens is, as you get on past the oil industry, really probably past World War II, you start seeing the taller buildings that we see now going up, and actually several of them have gone up and come down. When you get where you don't have the technology to connect as well, you wanted everyone here a few blocks away where you could literally physically talk to one another and communicate, where that's somewhat less important, but in many ways it still is. So Midland positioned itself and became the center of the oil industry, kind of the white collar side of that, I think, or at least we touted ourselves as that.
I used to say when I was mayor, this is the most entrepreneurial, family-oriented city in America. And not that you have to be independent but anyone that comes here can make a name for themselves. They can actually build something. And I think that's always been the case. The things they're building are totally different than they used to be. I think there were just bigger oil companies, but today it's a guy that wants to start a little restaurant. It's a person that wants to have a martini bar. I mean, there are all sorts of different things, and that's going to appeal to that demographic. So to say that it's entrepreneurial and family oriented, I think still the case. So kind of my background has always been historical preservation. It's really a part of what Midland needs to be. We always kind of tore things down. I felt like I needed to be the contrarian and try to preserve old buildings versus tearing stuff down. But this building we're in now is the Midland Tower building. So there was a guy in Australia that owned the old First National building, which is over at the corner of Wall and Main Street. So this guy had that building been empty forever, and I was really interested in it. And so anyway, I contacted this guy in Australia over about 2 years, ended up buying it, and it was a total disaster. We ended up completely gutting it and really could never come to a conclusion of what we do with it. An office building really wouldn't work. Residential didn't work because we wouldn't have any parking for people, so that was kind of a big deal. And then one day I was at a party for Clayton Williams' birthday party for him, and Tim Leach and I were next to each other, and he had bought Marillo, or Concho had bought Marillo, which was the owner of this building, Midland Tower. So he looks over at me, he says, "Hey, you want to make a deal?" And I said, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" He said, "I'll trade you." And I said, what do you mean?" He said, "I'll trade you that building you own, the old First National Bank, for the building I own, the Midland Tower building." And I immediately said, "Yeah, deal's a deal." I shook his hand. We agreed to it literally in 5 seconds because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything with it. Of course, he was doing a whole lot more stuff, and it wasn't big on his radar, but I thought, yeah, I'll do that. So that's what got me into this building. And then we just started a robust revitalization. It was a great project. In fact, my partner said that I had an unlimited budget and I blew it on doing this one. But it's worked out great financially. I can't complain. It's definitely worth it. I would hope it's inspirational that, okay, if someone can do this, because this was actually Bobby Burns' office that we're sitting in right now, who was, obviously a former mayor and had an insurance company here. There's a law firm in this place. And so when I started it, I thought, I want to have a meeting space, kind of like the old First National Bank. Early on, I thought it was going to be a coffee shop. Later, I figured out that's not it. People want to go have cocktails at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's where we ended up deciding that's the way we're going to go. And so this is just a community space, but the downstairs ended up being Opal's basement. It's been super successful. Cancun's been great.
Cancun Grill is a restaurant that it was established in 2005. From 2005 to 2007, we started on Big Spring Street. 2007, we moved here to downtown, and my brother and I, we decided to open up a restaurant. It was kind of a new concept of American food with Mexican flavors. For a Mexican restaurant, we sell a lot of steaks only because we put our flavors in them, and people have really accepted them. So it's a restaurant that sells a little bit of everything, but mainly steaks.
So Cancun was here first. And Joe was concerned that bringing another restaurant was going to hurt his business. And we talked about it. I said, well, I don't believe that's the case. I mean, that's why you'd see a CVS next to a Walgreens. I mean, there's just some synergies there. And so sure enough, he came to me a year or so later going, that was the best thing could ever happen for my business.
When Opals came here, I was kind of against it because we talked about that we were going to be the only restaurant here. But since Opals came here, I was able to raise up my prices and everything worked really well. You can see the size of our dining room. We fill it up almost every day. And our seating capacity is from 188 to 195. So we're so lucky and I guess blessed to fill it up every day because as you can see, it's a big restaurant.
The guys that bought the Permian Resources building, now called that, the old Wagner Brown, they're putting in a restaurant, they're doing a coffee shop, and that just starts happening all over. This Omni Hotel will have it as well. So that's really what it creates, is this synergy.
Somebody told me like 10 years ago that within 5 miles around my building, there's about 10,000 people working. So imagine, to me, I still feel like we need a couple of more restaurants.
For a long time, and years, decades probably, it was pretty dead down here. And with the vision of really Tim Leach, Grant Billingsley with Scar Foundation, they're the ones that came up with the concept of this park across the street.
And also, with the park and promoting more downtown, people feel more like coming downtown, they go eat at different places.
And of course, the city was super involved in that project. And to be able to bring people downtown requires families and kids and, and this vibrancy. And, there wasn't a lot going on, but after that park came in, things totally changed. And then all of them start to, Pi Social and just all those start to feed on each other. And it gives some people some comfort that, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And the Sip House guys are doing that. They just put a restaurant in over at the Frost National Bank building. So it just starts to build on itself. I think we're kind of at the beginning of a climb. We are on it, but really what really drives downtown is activity. So it's restaurants, things to do, places to live, all those things plug into it. And with our population be as young as it is, they see the value, and they're coming from places that have vibrant downtowns and different things to do. So that's really an important element. It's not kind of linear. You have to build it kind of step by step. Probably our biggest future project, or the near-term future project, is our Omni Hotel. That's a game changer. And with more conventions and things like that brings in more restaurants. So all of it starts to feed on itself.
It's just fun to see how things change. The street goes from basically a small dirt street with a few brick buildings, and then things just keep going up and up and up and up until you get these towering buildings there in that area.
When I came here, it was Wall Street, Luigi's, D-Bar, and then ourselves. And now it's like a restaurant on every corner. So downtown has done really well, business-wise and restaurant-wise.
And then we've been in this time period for almost 30 years where that wasn't happening. You could just never see anybody downtown. And just sitting here right now, we're seeing people walk across the street, and you just know it's changing. And I just think that's going to feed on itself. Kind of one of our biggest issues I'm seeing is our parking downtown. People don't know where to park, and the city's taking the lead on how to fix that, and I'm excited to see how that all plays out.
I'd like to encourage other businesses to move downtown. Downtown has been great for us, so hopefully we can see more business so we can get more people coming to downtown Midland.
I think of downtown as our front porch. So if you want to know something about a city and you're brand new, you pretty much have to go downtown. You can tell a lot if there's a lot of vibrancy, if there's things to do, young people around. That just tells you it's a vibrant city. And actually it has a lot to do with our younger population. It's they're driving this. And it's so fun to think about. We were an 8 to 5 downtown, and now it's hopping at 11 o'clock at night. It's really kind of remarkable to come down and see all the people and hanging out at the park and having restaurants. It's a dream come true for me.